உங்களுக்கு பிடிச்ச மொபைல் போன்களை அட்டகாசமான ஆஃபர்ல அள்ளிக்கிட்டு போங்க.
The Poco X2 has a bright, colorful glass rear with a gradient tone and an unusual circular design around the vertical camera strip. Despite the fact that the rear of this phone is quite flat, Poco has managed to make the patch reflective like a convex mirror. Poco says it has used Gorilla Glass 5 for the front as well as the rear of the X2. With a 6.67-inch screen, this is undoubtedly a large phone. The tall aspect ratio helps with reachability and the non-slippery rear makes for a decent grip. The wide dual camera cutout in the upper right corner of the screen isn't too noticeable in ordinary use, but definitely is a distraction when watching full-screen video. The display has a killer feature to boast of, a 120Hz refresh rate. This is subtle, but it really does improve the quality of the usage experience, making the Android UI feel smooth and responsive. This screen isn't the most vivid or crisp, but it is fairly bright and engaging, and viewing angles are great. We also noticed a bit of backlight unevenness around the cutout. The power button on the right doubles as a fingerprint sensor, but it's long and thin, which isn't ideal. Left-handed users will find this placement awkward, and you'll need to enroll at least 2 or 3 fingers so you can unlock the phone when it's in your hand and on a table. On the top, you'll find an infrared emitter like on many Xiaomi phones. Sadly, the tray on the left is of the hybrid variety, so you'll have to sacrifice a second SIM if you need a micro SD card and vice versa. There's a 3.5mm audio socket, USB Type-C port, and a single speaker on the bottom. The speaker is very loud and the sound is impressively deep and rich. Poco's software UI is based on Android 10 and we have the December 2019 security update, which is good to see. There's a lot of preloaded bloatware and we saw multiple annoying notifications each day, along with ads and promoted content in many of the default apps. There are plenty of UI customization options. Not only is there now an app drawer, but it also has tabs that filter various categories of apps for easy access. You can get the Poco X2 in 3 variants and you can see the specs and the price on screen right now. Qualcomm's Snapdragon 730G processor is no slouch and the Poco X2 breezed through all our apps and usage scenarios. Multitasking was not a problem at all on the 8GB RAM variant that we reviewed. The phone didn't get too hot in use either and we only felt a mild warmth when playing games or using the cameras for a while. PUBG Mobile defaulted to the high preset. The game was enjoyable and ran without any lag. Asphalt 9 Legends also worked very well. We found the Poco X2's battery life to be decent and we didn't feel any anxiety about getting through a full day with regular usage. Our HD video loop test ran for 13 hours and 43 minutes, which is not a great result but might be influenced by how large the screen is. The Poco X2 has 4 rear cameras and you can see the specs on screen now. Photos came out well exposed with vibrant colors. When the composition allowed, there was very natural looking depth of field. Fine details on objects such as flower petals came out well, as long as there was good natural light and they were in the center of the frame. In shadowy areas and at the edges of daylight shots, details were somewhat lost and we did start seeing some grain. The wide-angle camera takes poorer quality shots as expected, but we were happy to see that warping at the sides is minimal. Macros were completely washed out and it was often hard to take a shot without the phone itself casting a shadow on our subjects. Low-light shots were relatively impressive, though of course detail is not as well defined as during the day. You can get usable shots as long as there's a little lighting around, whether indoors or out. The night mode brightens frames and shows details that would have been lost in the shadows. The primary selfie camera has a 20MP resolution and is accompanied by a 2MP depth sensor. You can take portrait selfies and adjust a virtual aperture to vary the intensity of the depth effect. Edge detection is quite good too. However, the overall quality of photos taken with the front camera isn't as impressive as we would have liked. Backgrounds were overblown in the daytime and details looked a bit artificial. Video recorded with the Poco X2 in the daytime at 1920x1080 was crisp with smooth motion tracking and reasonable stabilization. At 4K, colors became over-exaggerated. 4K video shot at night was barely usable. In low light, even mild movements caused severe shimmer and motion was quite jerky.